Welcome back to another episode of OKOGA Live. I'm Chad Warmington here with my partner in crime, Zack Lee.
Glad to be back, Chad.
We're going to give you some updates from what's going on at the Capitol. We've got an update on our good friends down at the Supreme Court made some decisions this week that didn't exactly go our way, but we wanted to start off kind of digging right into that. As many of you know, there's a ballot initiative that's been circulating that would put the Oklahoma gross production tax, would bump it up by 5%. It's being pushed by a group called Restore Oklahoma, and their goal is to try to get a teacher pay raise, which we agree completely with the underlying premise of getting a teacher pay raise, correct?
That's right. Our board has actually voted to support a teacher pay raise not too long ago.
And so what we don't agree with is the funding mechanism and how they're doing it. Again, basing really an important policy decision, teacher pay, on a really insecure and unstable form of revenue, which is gross production taxes, our state should know. So Oklahoma Oil and Gas Association, along with the Oklahoma Independent Petroleum Association, has filed some challenges to the legality of that, and the court ruled on those. Why don't you give us an update on how that went?
Yeah, so Monday the Supreme Court ruled on our challenges and OIPA's challenges, and essentially what they came down with is they said that the way that the state question is written, that the court is going to give deference to that and not deem it unconstitutional. So that doesn't necessarily mean that it's on the ballot in 2018. What it does mean is that it can move forward in the process. And so they're still going to have to go out and collect signatures. It's going to take about 15% of the last gubernatorial election, the last gubernatorial general election, which turns out to be around 123,000 signatures that they're going to have to collect within a 90-day period.
Okay.
So they'll be moving forward with that, I think, pretty shortly. The Secretary of State has to rule on a time period whenever they can start.
Okay. So our next step is legal challenges done for now?
It appears that way. However, there might be other challenges down the road, ballot title and things like that with the Attorney General.
Okay. So looking at in 10 to 15 days when the Secretary of State's office will officially tell the ballot committee they can begin collecting signatures. Is that kind of the timeline as well?
Yeah, I think that's the timeline that we're looking at, 10 to 15 days, maybe 30 days at the longest, and then they would be able to start collecting signatures, and they have a 90-day period to collect those 123,000 signatures.
Okay.
So
good.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will. So there's a lot of still hurdles for this to overcome. I think that's the other thing for it to keep in mind. Just because the signature collection process starts doesn't mean that it'll finish on time, and then there will be legal challenges and other hurdles post the collection of signatures before it even makes the ballot. So there's a long way to go before this is a guaranteed thing. And then I think the other thing to make sure that we can talk about too is OKOGA will be opposed to this. The Oklahoma Oil and Gas Association will vigorously oppose it. We'll put together an effort with others that are going to be concerned about it. And again, it's not based on the underlying principle. The principle of getting teachers a pay raise, we're in complete agreement on that. We're just really discouraged that the legislature, one, continues to fail to find a way to fund it, and two, we're forcing teachers in this group, Restore Oklahoma, to fund this pay raise on the really unstable and cyclical price of oil and gas. That's just a bad policy. So we'll oppose it all the way through, but I think we want to make it clear it's got a long way to go before it gets there too. So getting into the other part of the equation on this side is the legislature and its continual inability to be able to come up with a funding mechanism for funding a teacher pay raise. Give us an update on kind of what the status is on at the Capitol on those issues.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to see today, OEA is going to come out with their plan. They might actually be doing it as we're filming live, and it's more than likely it's going to have a 5 or 7% gross production tax, which, as we've been clear about, it's too much on the back of industry.
No doubt.
And it's not a broad enough solution. I mean, we've been very clear that we're supportive of a teacher pay raise, but that's more than doubling the gross production tax.
Yeah, we will vigorously oppose that as well. Potential for that to get some sort of, whatever their proposal is, to get some sort of legislative action. We'll stay on top of that, and we'll be vigorously opposing that, along with, again, other associations as well. Tell us some of the other kind of potential rumors we're hearing out there, or what we're seeing at the Capitol in terms of potential movement on a budget package.
Yeah, we've seen several legislators come out with their own plan. We saw one from Senator Bergstrom that included a 5% gross production tax rate, and then we've seen kind of whispers of something going on in the House with the 5% rate as well. And so those are out there. I'm not sure how much traction some of those are getting, but we keep hearing rumors before that April 2nd deadline that OEA is given before the teacher walkout.
Yeah. And again, I think I point out that teachers have amped up the pressure, and we agree with their underlying goal, getting pay raise. And I think there's ways to do that. As you know, we were supportive of the step-up plan, and the reason we was it was a broad-based revenue-enhancing measure that had some good reforms in it as well. Those things seem to have fallen by the wayside, and so any move, any package that includes more than a 4% gross production tax and doesn't include a broadening, we're going to be opposed to it. Just pretty simple.
I agree. I mean, I think that's where we're at. Right? That's where we're at this point.
So we also had some movement on a couple of OKOGA priority bills this week, and why don't you give us a quick update on that?
Yeah, so what we saw this week, it was a pretty light week given that it was spring break, but House Bill 2775 passed out of the Senate Energy Committee 8-0 with bipartisan support. So that's great that that's moving through the process. What that bill would seek to do is change the marketable title rate on the Production Revenue Standards Act. So it's a
good technical,
yeah,
an arcane
really
bill, technical bill, but it's a good bill, and it's just really a fundamental fairness issue, and a lot of credit to the Coalition of Surface and Mineral Owners that helped us out in that bill. And really what it came down to was why should producers be forced to pay a penalty interest rate when an unmarketable title isn't able to be obtained when it's not their fault. And so we were able to really reach a good compromise on that. So there's not an incentive for somebody not to cure their title, therefore getting a higher interest rate, and it's not a penalty to us when we're trying to pay somebody and we can't get the title cured. So it's a really common sense piece of reform, and we're glad to get something done. Hopefully that'll go to the floor here in the next couple of weeks and on to the governor.
Yeah, no, I think we'll definitely see it on the Senate floor here pretty soon. And it's already passed. The Senate version has already passed the Senate floor, so we would assume that this will go through as well.
That'd be great. Anything else that's happened, or what are you anticipating this week? I guess two questions there.
I think the budget talks will just be continuing, given the April 2nd deadline that OEA has given before the teacher walkout, and then we'll see the House and Senate return back to committee work.
Okay, great. Well, I know we also wanted to talk about an upcoming event that's coming up next week, and that is the Oklahoma Rally for the Rigs. The Rally for the Rigs is an event that we're doing jointly with the Oklahoma Independent Petroleum Association, and that's going to be on March 27th from 8:30 to noon out at the state capitol. And what we're going to try to do there is it's not a rally for anything necessarily in particular, as much as it's people from the oil and gas industry coming out to say, hey, this is an important industry, it's important to my community, it's important to my job, and just let legislators and others know about the importance of the Rally for the Rigs. And so I think if you can make it, or if our member companies can come out there, it's going to be should be a good time. We'll start at 8:30 with some coffee and donuts. Going to be kind of getting some speeches from some from prominent industry players, and then we're going to move on into the Capitol and hopefully be able to talk to legislators about some of these issues. And then what we do best with the oil and gas industry is we know how to cook some food, and we're going to have some of our service company members are going to be out serving up food for anyone at the Capitol who wants to come out, and that includes legislators and their staff or anyone there that's there just to help support the oil and gas industry. So speaking of service companies, I've got the most important service company member of the Oklahoma Oil and Gas Association Board of Directors, Mr. Tommie Herell. Tommie, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks, Facebook Live. First, I'd like to apologize. My wife and friends tell me I have a face for radio, so bear with me.
Well, so do I. So that makes two of us. So we'll be partners in crime.
Absolutely.
But Tommie is the development director. So give me your exact title.
Corporate Business Development for the Mid-Con region, which is the Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas region for Select Energy Services.
And Select Energy is one of the larger service companies in Oklahoma. And one of the things that I love about working with OKOGA is that we really get to deal with all aspects of the industry. So we have the E&P companies that are your clients that are, what I always like to say, poking holes in the ground and exploring for hydrocarbons. We have the midstream companies that move that product from the well site. We have the refiners who take that product and refine it in the gas processing. And then we have the important part that kind of pins all of that, which is the service side of the industry. So for those that don't know, I mean, I think it's a super important part, so much an important part that our board of directors asked you to be on our board because we wanted that service company sector side represented. But tell us a little bit about what the service sector does to support the industry.
First I'll talk a little bit about Select Energy Services. We're an end-to-end water solution provider. We move water from landowners, farmers. We source the water. We move it through above-ground transfer lines to the completion. After the well is completed, we work with the flowback to control the separating out the sand and different materials that are coming back and separate that out. And then after that, we have treatment that we can reuse water.
Right.
We also do trucking and disposal. So it's kind of an end-to-end, cradle-to-grave
No doubt.
company. We are roughly 5,000 employees now.
Wow. Growing fast.
Growing fast.
Number of acquisitions over the last couple of years too.
Yeah,
right?
we just IPO'd end of last year. We have Mid-Con's our second largest region, so it's a very important region to us. Permian is our number one region, so it's a huge growth opportunity with the IPO. We recently bought Rockwater, which was the second largest water service company in the business. So now we're the largest by 5 times. So
wow.
It's a good business, and we're glad to be in
doubt.
Oklahoma and glad to continue to grow.
And water is a really critical part of oil and gas development as well. So I know that Select plays a pretty critical role. If you can't get water on site, you can't have a completion operation, which just slows down the entire process. I mean, I don't think people realize how big a part water plays in the production of oil and natural gas.
As technology's grown, the completion designs have grown. More water, more sand.
Yep.
So it's become a very important piece to the operators.
Exactly. One of the things that I know that we deal with in terms of getting complaints about the oil and gas industry is a lot of truck traffic. And I know that Select works really hard to eliminate as many of those trucks on the road as they can. And so we're working on some legislation together right now that would help make it easier for you all to lay those temporary water lines. And again, those water lines eliminate trucks going up and down the road, which is, again, one of the most complaints we have. But talk about the importance of getting some uniformity in terms of making sure we can lay those temporary water lines.
Being able to use those temporary water lines is very important. It takes off, 108, 200 trucks per stage.
Wow.
So it takes a lot of trucks off the road.
So do the math. Help me do the math. So over 100 trucks per stage, and a lot of these wells are being completed in 40, 50 stages.
40, 50 stage.
Wow. Okay.
500,000 barrels
Wow.
of water.
Yep.
That is a huge issue of safety with that many trucks on the road. So be able to move the water through above ground transfer lines creates a unique opportunity to complete the wells at the size that they are.
Yeah, and we know that getting that truck traffic down makes it all so much easier for citizens that live around where these completion sites are, just in terms of dust going up and down the road. Again, the safety of having those large trucks on the road. And then I know for you, it's a safety issue, but it's also an efficiency issue too. I mean, it's easier for you to move that that water by pipe than it is more expensive and time-consuming probably with trucks. Correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So that's an issue that we'll be hopefully trying to move on this year. We're working with our friends at the Farm Bureau, and I know Tommie's had some good meetings with us and them and trying to make sure that we take care of landowners as well. I think Select does a really good job of taking care of the landowners in terms of where these pipes are going to be in right-of-ways, easements, or ditches, essentially. And so we want to make it convenient for them, too. So Farm Bureau has been great to work with. Hopefully we'll get something done there. It's been an issue that's been hanging around for a number of years, and I know you guys would like to see some resolution to it as well.
Just some structure in it, and the landowners are some of our biggest partners in the business, so we want to be sure and take care of them and have some uniformity with the process.
That'll be
We're
great.
excited about it.
So when we talk about gross production tax, I think people always think, well, that only affects the guys that are producing. But I think what you've always done a really good job of telling me about and really articulating when I've heard you talk to others that aren't even familiar with the industry, when the gross production tax goes up, or any taxes really on the oil and gas industry, the first people affected when rigs start coming down or laying down or capital starts moving is really the service side of it. And tell a little bit, I mean, I've heard you tell that example before, but talk to us about when we talk about taxing oil and gas, we're really not just talking about taxing producers, we're really impacting and taxing service companies too who bear the brunt of these either decreased capital costs or these increased taxes too.
Absolutely. Service companies don't pay gross gross production tax. But we are hugely affected by the activity of the operator. As rigs decrease, we have to decrease. So employees are getting either laid off or moved out to other more active regions. So the issue is very important to us, and we understand that we need to be active and we need to have a good economic environment.
Is it safe to kind of say that we're really, when you look at the service side of the business, it's almost a leading indicator about kind of the health of the industry overall? You guys, you're probably the first to kind of feel a slowdown. Is that fair?
We're the first to feel it and the last to return.
Yep.
So I'll break it down in three different areas. The big companies, which is what the legislators and a lot of other folks talk about, are not going to be infected by an increase. I think that's true. They're going to continue, but what does that look like? Does it look like a large operator that had 10 or 15 rigs goes down to 4 or 5 rigs? They focus on their core acreage. They focus on the leases they need to hold. We see that as at first an adverse effect to the industry.
No doubt.
Secondly, the private equity companies. Nobody wants to talk about the private equity companies. There were 31 new companies started in the last 2 years in Oklahoma. Those are small companies with 10 or 15 people. They are a large number of the rigs that are in Oklahoma. Their private investors are very keen on the margins, on the scenarios, on the economic environment. That will be a huge effect to the private equity market if they can't not feel like they can trust what the Oklahoma's doing.
No doubt.
And that'll have an adverse effect as well.
That's what we keep talking about. We keep trying to let legislators know that, look, these tax impacts certainly are going to make it more difficult for producers, but boy, the effects trickle down throughout the whole economic ecosystem, frankly, that's related to oil and gas. And again, with 25% of all state revenue generated by the oil and gas industry, and a lot of that revenue being thrown off by sales tax and the spending that you all are doing, boy, that's a huge impact. And the other thing I think people don't realize is the landowners really benefit from you being out there as well. You're either buying water from them or you're paying them to cross their land. I mean, you told me a number that I think was pretty staggering in terms of the amount of money you've paid to landowners for access to their water. And again, when production comes down or the taxes go up and the capital goes away, those people are impacted. Talk a little bit about the impact you have just monetarily wise directly with landowners.
Directly to landowners, we pay millions of dollars a year, not only in revenue to them, but we have to pay service tax on every water that we buy and sell to the operator. So that's a huge amount of tax revenue that comes out of the service side that we pay towards the state of Oklahoma, and we pay the landowners very well to be able to access their water and use their water.
Yeah.
One thing that I key on is every rig, every completion has hundreds of service companies that work through there, hundreds of employees. If those rigs go away, those employees go away. Yeah. We're not eating in the local communities. We're not staying in the local communities. Right. It has definitely an adverse effect as it trickles down and operators have to lay more rigs down and move to other areas.
Yeah, it's just it is a very sensitive economic ecosystem, I'll call it, and when you affect capital allocation decisions with decisions at the Capitol that aren't well thought out, like this 5% potential bill that's coming through, there's going to be negative economic consequences. And I like the way you worded that. You're the first to go and the last to come back. And those are families all across the state of Oklahoma, particularly western Oklahoma, who are going to be adversely impacted by that. These jobs that you all provide are good paying jobs. With a great company like Select, and when those jobs go away, it's going to be a while before they come back, and that's something that our legislators need to understand. We don't just turn this industry on a dime and just come running back. When they move that capital, the assets and the people follow. Fair?
I mean, we fight every month for capital dollars internally within our own company, and whenever we don't have the plans and long-term viability, we're losing those dollars, those employees to, the different other more active regions. So we see it in internally. We talked the other day that we're looking at an 11% decline in the rig count due to the unstable market. And
Yeah.
so, that affects us in growth. And so we're very keen on how this plays out.
Yeah, you guys are just as affected by anybody on those capital allocation decisions. And what they say, capital's a coward. It's going to go to the least hostile place it can. And so I think what Tommie just illustrated is the battle that's going on within every sector of the industry, which is uncertainty creates concern, and where there's concern, capital's not going to be committed to an area where they're not going to be guaranteed a return, or they don't know what the environment's looking like. And I think your company deals with it just like anybody else in the oil and gas industry, and it's got a significant impact.
Absolutely. We're still fractured.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, is there anything else we need to kind of wrap up on our, I know we've got a lot of capital issues we're discussing, and just, frankly, the environment isn't exactly fun and favorable right now, but got any last words for us, words of wisdom?
Oh, I'm born and bred in Oklahoma. I love Oklahoma. I love the people, the companies, the community. My wife's in education, so I definitely see that there's something needs to be done, but I think it needs to be done in a fiscally responsible way that shouldn't involve one industry or one company to pay the bulk share of what goes forward. No doubt about it. Well, I think Tommie kind of gave us a great point to wrap up on, which is the oil and gas industry is proud supporters of the education system in Oklahoma. To your point, a lot of our members and their employees take advantage of the education system, or in your case, have a family who work in it. And so again, there is a false narrative out there that is somehow it is oil and gas versus teachers, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm sure that Select, like many other companies, has a strong engagement with educators, and we want to continue that. Beyond the dollars that we pay out in terms of tax revenue, there's dollars that we contribute and time and effort that's given by Select employees and employees who have spouses and significant others working in the education industry and particularly in teaching, and we want to support that. And I'll just kind of let you give the last word on this. Our board of directors took a specific action to support a teacher pay raise because it's that important to us. Yeah, it was very important to us. We saw the need in it. We thought the plan was spread out over a good amount, and we were comfortable with it. There's a way to do it. I think that business and industry needs to be involved, and they need to find a good, responsible way to do it. Well, hopefully they can. We'll see what the week brings. Really want to thank you for being here. Yeah, and thanks for having me. Thank you for serving on the board of directors and bringing the service company aspect and flavor and voice. It's been very helpful, and appreciate you doing it. All right. Thanks, Chad. Thanks. We'll be back next week with another episode of OKOGA Live. Thanks for watching.